I mean, Nigel Nelson, this is gerrymandering, political gerrymandering.
No, because you can't gerrymander on the basis of age groups. And if it was, then we should perhaps ban over 65s from voting because the majority of them vote Tory.
Do you think a 16-year-old is ready to make that decision?
Yes, because we allow them to make other decisions that are the equivalents of that. They can be a company director, they pay income tax, they can change their name.
They can't go into a pub and order a beer.
They can't go...
So are you talking about also reducing the drinking age?
Well, the question then comes down to...
Smoking age?
If you decide,
the age of marriage?
If you decide... Well, the age of marriage is now 18, so...
That's what I mean.
Yeah, so...
But surely if you're considering lowering the voting age, you'd also say that
I think you have to look at what other things then... I mean, if you decide a 16-year-old is an adult, they should make adult decisions and therefore have similar adult rights. So, for instance, the driving age would have to come down. But there are areas where you couldn't do it.
But Labour isn't proposing to do that.
No, I mean, we're talking about voting here. We're not talking about doing anything else. I would be very worried, for instance, if 16-year-olds were treated as adults and ended up in an adult prison. That, to me, would be completely wrong. So there are certain things...
But you want them to be able to vote your boys in?
I think that well, it's not necessarily my fault.
Oh, that's what this is about.
I mean, it's not about that. It's not about gerrymandering. They may vote a different way. They have a stake in their own future. They should be allowed to vote for
Carol, come on,
the 100,000 in Scotland who voted for the referendum, the independence referendum. They showed how politically engaged they were. So I would trust the decisions of a 16-year-old.
But Mick, if I was very politically engaged at 16,
yeah.
But I was also incredibly politically naive, and I think it would have been very irresponsible to give me the vote. I think it's great that I was engaged. I used to engage with all of the political parties, but actually I needed that time to develop my political ideology and also just enjoy life.
Well, exactly, and also that I think most 16-year-olds are not working. I think one MP today said that... all 16-year-olds, a lot of 16-year-olds are paying tax, they're working, they deserve to have a right to say what happens in our country. And the thing is, they don't, though, because, they keep saying there's no jobs for 16-year-olds. They have to stay at school till they're 18, I think, and then they end up at university. And so they're constantly being indoctrinated by the education system,
yes.
Which means that they don't really stand a chance to think for themselves. They don't teach kids how to think. They teach them what to think. And I just think that I think Labour are being pretty sure of themselves I think they might be underestimating a lot of young people, actually, because I think, a lot of young people are not interested in politics. Another lot of young people are definitely not interested in Labour. And if they're not interested, what are Labour going to do? Offer them, free McDonald's?
Well, yes, but they are. But they are. But that's my concern, Belinda. But that's my concern. The bribery is going to be off the scale because we know what 16-year-olds are like. By
all sides. I mean, if you're talking about how you capture the 16-year-old vote...
Nigel, out of the 16 to 18...
the Tories do the same...
Yeah, but Nigel, the vast majority of teachers in our schools are left-wing. There is political indoctrination going on. I know that because my kids have all been in school, and they come out with, as Carol quite rightly said, being taught what to think and not how to think. Give them a chance outside of left-wing indoctrination in the classroom.
About the education
no,
system.
I am said, but many polls, many surveys have done this. Most teachers vote left-wing parties. And unfortunately, there is not that kind of supervision in the classroom that allows freedom of thought. So I'll give you one example. My daughter was in a classroom and the teacher said to the classroom, hands up who votes Tory, hands up who votes Labour. And when the girls that voted Labour put their hands up, she said, at least there are a few compassionate girls in the classroom. This is what teachers do. This happens, Nigel. So of course Labour wants to get them when they're 16. Well, it does,
I mean, teachers are not meant to get involved in politics.
But you know they do.
They shame children for having any type of conservative views. They shame them.
But a complaint should have been made about that, because that is not what a teacher is
supposed to do. Bad, Labour, good.
Yeah, you're a nice person if you're left-wing and you're horrid if you have... This is being taught in schools. This is happening, Nigel, and trust Labour to try and capture them.
I mean, what I'm saying is that to make that as a generalisation across the whole education system seems to be going too far. Teachers are actually told they shouldn't do things like that.
Being told is one thing, doing it is another, Nigel, and I think we need to have a whole reformation of how teachers teach children how to think and not what to think. Because politically, if Labour start grabbing children out of schools when they've just had a few years of this left is good, right is bad, they're going to be in government for eternity.
Nigel, let me put it to you. There's something much bigger at play here, isn't there? And what Labour are trying to do, and this is why Starmer pretends to be so moderate, but what they're trying to do after the next election, which, let's be honest, they're likely to win in a landslide, unfortunately, but what they want to do is guarantee a lifetime of left-wing socialism in this country, and this is one of the main planks behind that.
I don't think you could ever guarantee it. I mean, democracy is a fickle kind of
Well,
beast.
then why do they want to change the electoral system? Why do they want to change the voting age?
Well, I mean, change the voting is, I mean, the same reason I do. I think it's a matter of fairness, and that 16-year-olds should have it. I was persuaded to this by a young woman in the youth parliament, and she said, "Isn't it ridiculous? I can marry my MP, have children with my MP, but I can't vote for my MP." And that seemed to be a pretty good reason for 16-year-olds having the vote.
Do you not think it undermines the vote? It loses gravitas. It makes it meaningless when it becomes part of playground chatter and is given to children.
It's
anti-democratic giving children the vote.
Yeah, but
how long before they give them to
14-year-olds.
illegal?
Why not 8-year-olds? 8-year-olds can pay
and of
tax.
course, Carol, one
Through
thing that
adverts
Labour is considering, it doesn't look like they're going to push through with it this time, is giving EU citizens the vote.
They need to change
and you
the
have to admit,
electorate.
Nigel, they are seriously considering that.
Well,
They are seriously considering that.
Commonwealth citizens have the vote in this country.
Yeah, we're part of the Commonwealth. Why give EU citizens the vote?
Well, because they live here.
Because they're going to vote for Labour.
And no, because they live here.
They're going to vote for
I
Labour.
live in France and I don't get the vote.
No, you have to be a citizen to vote,
You have
not
to
just live here.
You have to live here.
So, no.
And
you have to be a citizen.
They're
You have
already
to have a
able to vote
passport.
in local elections because they pay into the system.
But I'm glad, Nigel. I'm glad because you've opened up what Labour is really like.
And the kids won't be able to tell the difference anyway because they're all the same. Labour.
Yeah, exactly, Carol.
They're all saying the same old stuff.
For now.